Hello and welcome to this Advective weather update. Hurricane Lee is the only topic of discussion today as Hoover has weakened over the open eastern Pacific Ocean. This is a reminder of what Hurricane Lee looked at on Thursday evening as an incredible Category 5 hurricane, thankfully far from land, which is a welcome change from many recent Category 5 hurricanes. However, Lee encountered some significant shear more than anticipated, and now looks like this as of a few minutes ago. This is a loop over the past few hours, and as you can see, not a well-defined eye, not clearly evident, but from where those cloud bursts are happening, the very strong thunderstorms in the white and pink, you can see where the edge of the eye is, but no clearly defined eye by any means, especially not compared to how it looked at peak a couple of days ago. Now, what's in store for the future of Lee? Well, here's the official forecast. As you can see, M's throughout the cone still expected to remain at least a Category 3 through the next 5 days. It is expected to start re-strengthening later today, and it is possible that it becomes stronger than that first peak intensity, which would be winds above 165 miles an hour or a pressure below 926. So it is possible it becomes more intense, that is a deeper pressure, while remaining a Category 4. Which would be interesting, wouldn't it, to have one peak with higher winds and a different peak with a lower pressure. Anyway, the current intensity, verified by Hurricane Hunter aircraft, is winds of 115 miles an hour and a pressure of 957 millibars, moving to the west-northwest at around 12. It's going to gradually slow down over the next few days, and then as you can see now, the turn to the north is going to happen sometime Wednesday into Thursday. And it'll then move somewhere to the west of Bermuda, maybe bringing tropical storm conditions, maybe bringing hurricane conditions. It isn't out of the question Bermuda gets a direct strike, but that's well beyond 5 days. That's day 6 to 7 at this time, so it's too soon to say what the impacts to Bermuda will be. But people in Bermuda, be aware once again, another major hurricane is moving in your general direction. And of course, beyond Bermuda, it seems likely that Lee will bring impacts to potentially the New England area of the United States, but specifically Nova Scotia and Canada. There is a fair bit of agreement that something will happen to Lee when it gets there, but we don't know if it'll still be tropical by the time it gets up there. We don't know if it'll be hurricane force, tropical storm force. We don't know if it'll stay offshore and weaken. Might stall off the coast. That's one possibility. It might move out to sea while bringing some gale force winds to the coast. That's another possibility. The worst scenario would be Lee moving inland as a hurricane or a hurricane force extratropical system. Now, all those scenarios are possible. Again, we're hoping it moves out to sea, but we can't hope. We can't just hope, we have to be prepared. So, a few days from now, we'll have a much better idea what's happening. Landfall, if it happens, will be in the coast, will be in the cone, it'll be inside 5 days. It's currently around 8 days from now, is what the time frame we're looking at for potential impacts. But of course, nothing's set in stone, and it could still move out to sea, so fingers crossed, it does move out to sea. You'll hear more from us in the future as regards to what the models say will happen, and of course, what the National Hurricane Centre forecasts. But at this time, they stress that it's far too soon to say, and that is of course true. Now, Bermuda, just creeping into those tropical storm force wind speed probabilities, 5 to 10% chance for the Turks and Caicos Islands and the easternmost Bahamas as well, but most you should have is some gusty winds, much more of an issue from the very rough surf and rip current threat, which has reached these islands and will continue throughout the next week, to be honest, with Lee being such an intense system with far-reaching impacts. Those are also going to reach the eastern coast of the United States, from Florida all the way up to the Carolinas, and maybe up farther beyond already. Those wave impacts will increase as Lee moves closer, and then once Lee moves to the north, they'll gradually die away. And of course, the rough surf and rip currents will be an issue for Cuba, Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, and the Lesser Antilles for the next several days. Now, here's a look at a model run from earlier, which is fairly similar to the National Hurricane Centre forecast, so it's a good representation of what might happen in the future. Now, ignore the wind in the top right corner, it's not particularly accurate when we take this wide-scale view, but if you can see, it's a bit small, but I'll read it out to you. We start off around the same in pressure in the upper 950s, and then Lee deepens, according to the HAFAS B run from this morning, deepens back to the 920s, getting a bit stronger in terms of pressure than it was at its first peak, and then it fluctuates in intensity due to eyewall replacement cycles, and then at the end of the run it turns north, still a major hurricane at that time, but not necessarily a Category 4. That's exactly in line with the National Hurricane forecast. It's the most likely scenario. It could get even stronger than that. One of the European runs from a few hours ago, very strong. It flipped entirely. It said the environment was going to be not very good. The hurricane hunters went out, got some new data, went into the model, and it is now the most intense model for the system. So even though we have regular hurricane hunter flights into it, the models are still changing drastically, and it's a bit uncertain what will happen in the next 5 days, let alone next weekend as it approaches New England and Canada. Once again, too uncertain to say what will happen at that time, and hopefully stays offshore. So don't buy into the hype just yet, but be aware and keep watching until we know what will happen. Start making preparations once the officials tell you to, if you need to at all. And that's all for us today. Thank you very much for watching, and please tune in next time for the latest on Major Hurricane Lee. Goodbye.